Cheers, and welcome to Bitter Reality Brewing. Yes, this is what are the 5 beer styles that are your absolute go-tos. And follow me here, I got a little disclaimer here. I want to just share some information and I want people in the comments to share what they like and why. But when I say go-to, I'm talking like I walk into a brewery, I walk into a gastropub. It's pretty much the only 2 places I usually go, but or a restaurant that has a good beer selection. And they start naming the beers they have or beer styles. I listen to the style a lot and then I figure out, what it is, but it is your go-to. And what I mean by go-to, I don't mean like for me, when I go into a brewery or a gastropub and the selection's kind of, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll take a West Coast IPA or an IPA. IPA is my go-to when there's nothing else that's a standout style that I really love. And I do like my West Coast IPAs, but there are certain styles that if you're going down you can have a list of 20 beers and you hit one of these, I just stop you and go boom, unless you stop and tell me you have multiples or variations of that. And then I'm like, okay, wait, what's going on here? In the comments, let me know what your top 5, if you can. If you can't, you can go 3. If you're crazy like me and you want to give 10, then that's fine too. I've got top 5 and why they're my top 5 go-tos. I mean, you're sitting there telling me your beers you have and you nail one of these, I've done it many times. I was in St. Augustine one time and they hit one of my go-to styles that I really love because and the reason I love them so much is I don't get them very often. They're not common. That's why I like these styles so much. And the young lady named one of them and I went, whoa, you have a what? And it's from a local brewery? I mean, like, just brownie points all the way. I'm like, just stop, just bring me that. I don't care about anything, just bring me that. And it was really good. So I was very happy supporting a local brewery. And on top of that, I had a beer style I hadn't had in a while, unless I made it myself. So I'm gonna jump right in and I'm gonna nail my first go-to beer style, which locally a few breweries have been making one. And I'm a critic, of course. I will tell them it's good, nothing special. And then if I have it and it's really good, I'll let you know that too. And I will go out of my way to a brewery if I find out they have one of these beer styles just to try their beer. Yes, even if I've been there before or I've never been there. If I hear they have one of these, I'm heading that way. With one exception because it's a little more common. So my first one, what is my first one? Well, my first one is the one that most bottle shops don't know how to sell. It's called a black IPA, or also sometimes called a Cascadian dark ale. But that should be dark chocolate. The easiest way to sell that and promote it is, do you like dark chocolate? Yes, bam, because it's a bitter chocolate. Just saying. Now, mouthfeel should be moderate, shouldn't be real thin, shouldn't be light, shouldn't be heavy like a massive stout, should be drinkable, enjoyable, should have some hoppiness. Definitely some citrus is always very, very welcomed in a dark IPA or a black IPA. I shouldn't call it a dark IPA, black IPA. It may have some resin, it may have a little woodiness. Recently, one of the other channels out there mentioned something about one, and I agree, yeah. Woody, resins, there's some great hops out there. Chinook is definitely one of my go-tos for that, Centennial. But if I hear that, I'm excited. Now, if it has some roasted notes, that's correct to the style. I'm not always a big fan of that, but usually they hold back a little. It's not like a big, coffee stout. It's more of a black IPA. Number 2, this is the one I did in St. Augustine that was being brewed by a local brewery, Altbier, as they say it. But Altbier. Altbier is originally out of Germany, and it's out of Dusseldorf, Germany. Yeah, which is kind of funny because my last name actually happens to be originating right next to Dusseldorf, which is kind of cool. But it should be a very balanced copper to dark copper, sometimes almost black, but it's usually copper to dark copper, and it's all about balance. You may have a little more maltiness than the bitter, but as the maltiness increases, the bitter should increase. If the bitter increases, the maltiness needs to increase. It's just a very balanced, darker beer. I'm not gonna say dark, but darker beer. And I absolutely love a great alt beer. I mean, yeah, one of the local breweries had it last year and I heard they had it and I was like, I was there. I was like, oh yeah, let me try it. And it was really good. Now, my next one, this one's a little more common and I may not drive to go get it unless it sounds really cool, but Saison. Saisons are not common in gastropubs. They're not common in some breweries. Some breweries, they usually have a Saison on tap. But if you've ever had a DuPont Saison ale, that is like the go-to classic. And there is a certain pizza place that I go to sometimes to get wings or pizza without cheese, sadly. But yeah, they have DuPont Saison ale on tap, or not on tap, but on bottle. And I get a bottle and have that. That is my go-to when I go to that place because Well, I don't care about most of the other beers they have. Some are okay, some I've had before, but it's the only place that I can get that cold ready to go without having to go buy it myself and throw it in my fridge. A Saison is traditionally, there's a lot of variations to Saisons. There's even dark Saisons, but traditionally a light-bodied, highly carbonated Belgian ale, often described as kind of a farmhouse ale, although I feel like farmhouse ales are almost another class to them. You get that leather, you get just some other flavors going, or aromas and flavors on them, but it's known to be slightly complex, spicy, definitely known for either having a little bit of, hints of fruit, even though there may not be any, and it goes great if you want to make a fruit beer or a fruited beer. Saison is like great, and usually dry or mildly dry finish. I don't really care for sweet Saisons. That something happened with the attenuation there. But yeah, Saisons. Love a good Saison. Didn't used to like Saisons. I really only liked them with fruit until I found Saison DuPont and a few others out there. And I'm like, okay, there are some good Saisons that don't taste like bubble gum. If you've had a bubble gum Saison, keep trying. You'll find a better one. Number 4. Number 4 is more of two beers, but within a style. Belgian Pale Ale or a Belgian IPA. If you have a West Coast IPA, but you got a Belgian Pale Ale or IPA, I'm going Belgian. I love that. It's the same thing as the Saison. You're getting all that complex and the spiciness and hints of fruit. You get all kinds of things going on. It's just a lot going on. And as I've talked to some people who don't care for Belgians, they're like, there's too much going on. I get it. You either are yay or nay, but a Belgian Pale Ale, Belgian IPA, I love a good Belgian. Bitter, like I said, something like that. There's so many other Belgians out there. Number 5, rye. Almost anything with rye in it. Rye IPA, rye pale ale. I've had some just rye ales that are just lots of rye, but anything with rye. I love a rye, and I know that's not really a beer style, but if you want to call it a rye IPA, that would probably be my absolute go-to. If I heard that, I'd be like, stop the presses, let's go. One of my issues, which I'm going to have with the honorable mentions, 2 of the honorable mentions out of 3, is that I don't feel a lot of breweries add enough rye. And I've even talked to a brewery in Gainesville that has a pale ale that they don't talk about the rye, and the rye is in there and you can taste it, because they feel like people get this, no, I don't want rye, I don't like rye, but they like the pale ale because they don't know it has it in it. Honorable mentions: smoked beer, or even a Rauch beer. Sometimes it's not a Rauch beer, it's just a beer that they've added some smoked malts to it. My issue there is that, and this is an honorable mention, it's not always my go-to, is that most breweries or brewers do not add enough. And I can take one with 100% smoked malt, but they don't add enough to really take notice or even sometimes really smell it or taste. It's such a nuance and it's so light, it's very hard to notice it. Unless it's your absolute first beer of the day, and then you might notice it and you haven't eaten anything. Wood-aged beers, even more so on that, not enough, because I've had so many wood-aged beers, I'm like, I don't notice anything. You gotta work hard there to get that. You really wanna make sure that it's pulling in whatever it's been aged in. Now, agreed, if it's been in a used barrel, you're not gonna notice the wood as much as you're gonna notice whatever it was used for previously, and that's fine. Another honorable mention, and this one actually people do a pretty good job of, and it's not one of those nuanced type issues, is a Belgian Dubbel. Belgian Dubbel is really, really nice. I like one of those occasionally, but those are all 3 are honorable mentions. My go-to in a heartbeat, of course, would be the black IPA, the Altbier, the Saison, or a Belgian Pale Ale or IPA, and of course, I love rye. So down below, like I said, let me know what like, stop the presses, bring me a pint, and just that I'm good. Cheers, I appreciate you. Hey, here's to a great beer.